Hello, students. The topic that we are going to do today is the administration of justice in Calcutta. Now, I've done these topics with you people in the initial classes that I've taken with you people, and I started with the early charters. Then I have covered the administration of justice in Madras. I did with you people the administration of justice in Bombay, and today the topic that we are going to do is the administration of justice in Calcutta. There's one thing that I'm again telling you people is that this is early administration of justice. So when I'm talking about early administration of justice, it's basically the time frame that you people should remember is from 1600 till 1726. I'm again telling you why 1726 I have taken as an early settlement only, because till 1726 it was only the initial administration, initial judicial administration that was given by the Britishers to us. A little bit organization they did in the three presidencies, mainly when I am talking about the Madras, Bombay and Calcutta we'll do today. So only early administration you people should know. Now I'll begin with my lecture. Now first of all, I'll start with the introduction. And what is the introduction? How this Calcutta as a city or as a state came up during the British time, how it became a presidency town. Now the story is, in the year 1668, the grandson of Aurangzeb, that was Azimu Shah. So Azimu Shah was the grandson of Aurangzeb, and he was also the Subadar of Bengal. He gave zamindari rights of villages Calcutta, Sultanati and Govindpur to the East India Company for an annual revenue of 1,195. Now what happened basically, the grandson of Aurangzeb, his name was Azimus Shan, so he gave zamindari rights. Zamindari rights basically means the right to collect revenue from the farmers. So basically this right was given to the East India Company by the grandson of Aurangzeb, and he will collect the zamindari revenue. This annual revenue will be collected by the East India Company from three villages, and these three villages are namely Calcutta, Sultanati and Govindpur. So basically the East India Company will be collecting the revenue, the annual revenue, and it will be about 1,195. See, today at present 1,195 is a very little amount, but if I talk about 1668, the time when Britishers came to India, then obviously this was a good revenue that was given for the Britishers to collect, and they will collect these revenues from these three cities, Calcutta, Sultanati and Govindpur. The foundations of Calcutta were laid on 24th August 1680 under the leadership of Job Carnock. So he was the person, the founder. The foundations of Calcutta were laid after it. And what happened in December 1699, Calcutta became a presidency town, and a president, but he's not known as a president. A governor and a council will be appointed to administer the settlement. So what happened, once the East India Company got the right to collect revenue from Calcutta, Sultanati and Govindpur, in 1699 Calcutta became a presidency town, and basically a governor and his council was appointed by the Britishers to look after the administration of Calcutta. So to administer the settlement of Calcutta, the governor and the council was appointed by the East India Company. Now the acquisition of zamindari was very important to the company. This was very important. Why? Because zamindari itself is, or revenue collection itself is a big thing that is given by the Mughals to the Britishers. So if you start collecting revenue from any city or any district, that means you can easily consolidate the power of that place also. It becomes quite easy. Now what happened, as a zamindar, the company got all the powers which the other zamindars of Bengal received at that time. So whatever other zamindars of Bengal, whatever powers they were having, similar powers were given to the company, because company also got the zamindari rights. Now in Mughal Empire, zamindars got no significant judicial power, but collected the revenue and maintained law and order in the zamindari area or in villages. Now during the Mughal Empire, because this is the time when Mughals were ruling in India, 1600, 1668, during this time zamindars did not have judicial power, so they were not the judges actually, but yes, they used to collect the revenue, and they also had the responsibility to maintain law and order in that area from where they have to collect the revenue new. But for the judicial purpose, that means at that time, if you people know, the qazis were there. It was the Muslim law that was advocated. Hindu civil law was there for the Hindu population, but majorly Muslim criminal law was there, and Muslim civil law for Muslim people were there. And therefore there were qazis court. So you people know, a qazi will be presiding, a qazi, a Muslim man, will be presiding over this court. And these were established in each district or sarkar, pargana, and villages. So basically in every district there'll be a qazi court, and this qazi court will handle both civil and criminal matters. But normally village panchayats solve all problems excepting serious crimes, and Hindus, elders, or Brahmins solve the problems. So basically every village, if you people know today also, the gram panchayats, the local problems or the local day-to-day issues are solved at this level only, at the village level. And if it is about Hindus, the elders of the villages or the Brahmins used to solve the issues which are among them. Now the judicial system was simple, as everyone knew each other and transactions of other. So basically the entire judicial system was very simple, because everyone knew that what is happening, what is the basic law, it's based on Shastra. So everybody, the Brahmins knew it, and therefore the judicial system was simple. And even the Muslims used to know the Muslim law. Mughal kings never paid any attention to judicial system, and the judicial department wasn't very well organized in the Mughals. If you can see, Mughals never paid very much attention to the judicial system, and this judicial system was this judicial system wasn't very well organized in the Mughals. Why? Because basically this was there because the Mughals were mainly, their main aim was to consolidate powers in the entire India, and judicial attention was not given much by them. And when the Mughal administration structure started disintegrating and the Nawab's authority weakened in Bengal, degeneration in the ranks of the Qazis set in. Now what happened, you people know, slowly from 1700, that is the time when the Mughal Empire started getting very weak in India, and there also led to this Nawab's authority also started weakening. See, Nawab of Bengal was initially the head of Bengal. You people know that in the battle of this Plassey, that was fought in 1757 between the Nawab of Bengal at that time, who was Sirajuddaula, and the East India Company, Bengal completely became the presidency of Bengal. Basically, Bengal was defeated and East India Company acquired Bengal. So basically, if you people know, this happened in 1757. So before 1757 only, the Nawab's authority started weakening in Bengal, and this led to degeneration in the ranks of Qazis. So basically, the ranks of the Qazis were degenerated, and the post of Qazis was sold many times. The highest bidder became the Qazi, justice was purchased, corruption was rampant. Now what is happening, this post of Qazi was sold many times. So this post was basically used, actually this post was sold. That means anybody who will bid against it, for example, a person is ready to pay 10,000 rupees for this post, then obviously this post will be sold to that person. So basically the post of Qazi was sold many times, and the highest bidder became the Qazi. Whosoever used to bid the highest, for example, a person is bidding for 8,000, I'll give you 8,000 if you give this post to me, if it is offering to a Qazi, and the other person offers 10,000, then obviously the person who is giving 10,000 will get the post. And justice was purchased, corruption was rampant. So at this time, justice was purchased in the sense that this chair of the Qazi can easily be purchased, and therefore you can see corruption was rampant. It was at a very great extent. Qazis never got salary, so Qazi court fined the criminal and earned money. After this, demanded money from the complainant for giving him justice. So basically, Qazis never got any salary. Initially, they used to work like this, but Qazis never used to get salary. So how they used to get money? They used to find the criminal with a amount, and the criminal used to pay them the amount, and this was a kind of a money that was given to them. And after this, demanded money from the complainant for giving him justice. So he used to demand, the Qazis used to demand money from that complainant for giving him justice. So if you'll pay me, then I'll give you justice. So this was the major source of money for them, for the qazis. Corruption was rampant at that time. Now what happened when Britishers became the zamindars? The zamindars came to administer justice in all civil, criminal and revenue, and the appeals went to the Nawab's court. So what started happening? The zamindars started administering justice. The qazis court, the ranks of the qazis, and at the qazi court was totally abolished, and zamindars became the person who will also provide justice. So initially they were only collecting revenue, but now all they came to administer justice also, and they used to provide justice in all cases, whether it is civil, criminal and revenue. And the appeals from the Tamilnadu used to go to the Nawab's court. But in reality, actually, many appeals were actually taken. So the appeal went to the Nawab court in theory, but in reality, not many appeals were actually taken. So it was said that from zamindars, suppose a zamindar gives a judgment, and if a person is not satisfied by the judgment given by the zamindar, then obviously he can appeal to the Nawab court. But actually, if I talk about reality, not many appeals actually go to the Nawab court. The zamindar could even award capital sentence, but only with the confirmation of the Nawab government. The zamindar charged high fees for deciding civil cases in their court. So zamindar can also award capital sentence to the person, but only with the confirmation of the Nawab government. If the Nawab says that yes, you can award him a capital sentence means death penalty can be awarded. Now, the zamindars charged high fees for deciding civil cases in their courts. So the zamindars used to charge obviously the high fees. If you people know, zamindar belong to that district only, and obviously he can have high charges or high fees he can ask for deciding civil cases. And the judgments by the zamindars were mostly discretionary. There was no definite body of law which they administered. So whatever the judgments are given by the zamindar in any crime that has been in any crime that has been committed, well, these judgments are mostly discretionary. Discretionary means given by their own will, and there was no body of law that they used to actually follow. So they were not, for example, today we say that this judgment is given according to this section of the IPC, this section of the CRPC, but there was no definite body of law that can be referred. So these zamindars, whatever punishment they used to think the best for the crime, they used to give them, and so therefore their judgments were given mostly discretionary. It is at their own wish. Nawab courts at Murshidabad was not in a good state either. So where was the Nawab court? Where was the Nawab used to sit? Where was his court? Was at Murshidabad. So Murshidabad is again in Bengal. So at this place was the Nawab court at that time. And theoretically, it is the highest court, as the Nawab was the head of the Nizamat and responsible for maintenance of law and order and administration of criminal justice. Now, I've also told you that it is basically the highest, the Nawab was also the head of the Sadar Nizamat Adalat. So when I was telling you about the Sadar courts, I told you the Nawab was also the head of the Nizamat Adalat, and he was also responsible for giving criminal justice. So he was also responsible for maintenance of law and order, and he used to administer criminal justice. So this court was not in a very good state, but yes, theoretically in books, this was the highest criminal court because Nawab was the head of the Sadar Nizamat Adalat. While earlier the Nawab used to preside over the court, later the Nawab deputy, known as the Daroga Adalat Alia, began to exercise all the Nawab judicial functions. The highest civilian court was that of the Diwani, and thus responsible for collection of land revenue. So what happened? Actually, the Nawab should have the authority and should be the highest authority. Actually, the Nawab has to be the person who is to preside over the Nizamat Adalat. But what has happened? He has given his power to the deputy, the Nawab deputy. He is known as Daroga Adalat Al-Alia, and he used to exercise all the Nawab's judicial functions. And if I talk about the civil cases only, in civil cases, if you people know, there is Diwani Adalat, Sadar Diwani Adalat. So basically, this was responsible for collection of land revenue, while earlier the Diwan used to preside over the court for civil cases. So it is the Diwani Adalat, a Diwan used to preside over it. But what has happened later is deputy, known as the Daroga Adalat Diwani. So Daroga Adalat Al-Alia for criminal cases, the person will be there, and Daroga Adalat Diwani used to preside for civil cases. They began to execute this function and decide all civil and revenue cases. However, There was no rigid demarcation of jurisdiction among the various courts. Thus, there was a confusion of jurisdiction between the courts of the Nawab deputy and the Diwan's deputy. Now, what has actually happened to take place? I'll just summarize this paragraph if you people are not clear. Now, Nawab Court was there at Murshidabad, but theoretically, actually, it is the highest court in criminal cases, because the Nizam used to preside over the court, the Southern Nizamat Adalat. But what has happened over the time, the Nawab's deputy, known as Daroga Adalat al-Aliya, started to exercise whatever the functions that were exercised earlier by the Nawab, and this deputy Nawab actually became the person who used to preside over the Nizamat Adalat. And similarly, if I talk about the civil case, initially the Diwan used to preside over the Diwani Adalats, but instead of the Diwan, it is actually the deputy Diwan, also known as Daroga Adalat Diwani, started presiding over the Diwani Adalats. But there is also a problem. There was no rigid demarcation of jurisdiction among the various courts. That means it was not clear that whether this was the function of the Diwani court, this was the function of the Nizamat court, and thus this lead to a lot of confusion between the jurisdiction of the court, and therefore people were actually confused whether to go to the Diwani Adalat or the Nizamat Adalat for the case where they want to file it. So it was a little confusion was created with them. This was the problem. So what has happened in this, actually the Zamindar also became the person who will administer justice. But what they used to do, they used to appeal, actually went to the Nawab court, but in actually reality it is not happening, as I've told you. And Zamindar can even award capital sentence, but it requires the confirmation from the Nawab's government. But actually, if you can see, the Nawab is actually not playing a major role. The major role is played by the deputy Nawab in criminal cases, and if I talk about in civil cases, it is the main role is provided by the deputy Diwan and not the main Diwan. So you can see that there has been giving up of functions by the Nawab and the Diwan to their deputy Nawab and deputy Diwan. So this was the case when the Britishers became zamindars. Now, what was the judicial system in Calcutta? The zamindari functions of the company within Calcutta were given to an English officer. So the zamindari functions which were given to the company within Calcutta were given to an English officer, the collector of the zamindar, who was a member of the governor's council. Now, you people know, I have told you, there was a governor and his council who used to sit in Calcutta. Now, one of the officer of this governor's council, he got the zamindari functions of the company, and he discharged judicial power in all cases. He also got the right to collect revenue. He became a collector also, or a zamindar also, that person who used to be in the governor's council, and he will also discharge the judicial function. So he will also have judicial powers in all cases, whether it is civil, criminal, and revenue based. Criminal cases were decided quickly and without a jury. So jury, you understand, the people who are specialized, the common people who are specialized in their subjects used to be the jury who used to help the judge in deciding the case. So the criminal cases are basically decided very quickly. So if you have murdered a person, the punishment that can be awarded to you is life imprisonment or a death sentence. So it was quickly decided. Jury was not required. The usual method of punishment were whipping. So the methods of punishment, you should know, they were very cruel. Whipping means beating a person with a hunter. Fines were there. Imprisonment, putting a person in jail, was there. Banishment, banishing a person, and giving death sentence to a person. And death was not done very normally. So death was not awarded like a person is not hanged. Basically, what used to happen, it was basically done through inflicted by whipping to death. So what used to happen is that a person used to be beaten till the time he will die. And what is the meaning of banishment? Banishment basically means is basically sending that person away to a very isolated place, or sending away to a very another place which is very far from where he is at present. So these are the methods of punishment. For example, if you people know, in here also in India, you might have heard that the person was given Kale Pani ki saza. Initially, Andaman Nicobar was the islands which were totally black. There was no light. There was no people who were residing over there. And then people who used to commit crime were sent in Andaman Nicobar in isolated place, so that they can, it's a kind of a punishment that was given initially. So these were the kind of punishments: by whipping a person, imposing fines, imprisoning a person, banishment, completely sending him into an isolated place, awarding him with death, or these were punishments that were given. The Zamindar's court was confined not only to the Indians but also tried cases of petty crimes and misdemeanors committed by the Englishmen. So the Zamindar court was not only confined to the Indians. So that means that it will not only punish the Indians, it also used to try the petty cases, petty criminal cases or petty normal cases committed by Englishmen also. So basically you should know, because an English will only preside over this Zamindari court, because you people know he will belong to the governor council. Obviously he'll be an Englishman because he is presiding. Then he will not only deal with the Indian cases, he will deal with the petty cases which are done by Englishmen also. But the serious crimes of Englishmen were tried by the governor and council under the authority of the Charter of 1661. So the Zamindar court, obviously small petty crimes can be charged, or the Englishmen can be charged by the Zamindari court, but the serious crimes which are committed by the Englishmen, the Britishers, were in India were actually tried by the governor and the council. So the governor and the council used to try the serious crimes which are committed by the Englishmen. Now, the Zamindar also tried civil cases arising among the Indians. The judge acted in a quick manner, appeals laid to the governor and council. In civil cases also, which arise between the Indians, the Zamindar can try them, and the judge used to act quickly in this also. If I have told you over here, also in criminal cases, the decisions were taken quickly. Similarly, in civil cases also, the judge used to act quickly, and the appeals from the Zamindari court were laid to the governor and council. So governor and his council was the highest court of appeal. The collector, basically, I'll tell you just after this that it was not the highest court of appeal, but actually it started becoming the highest court of appeal. Now the collector of Zamindar took charge of the revenue cases also, since they were responsible for collection of the land rent. So I've told you, this collector of Zamindars were not only to provide justice in civil and criminal cases, it will also deal with the revenue related problems or cases that arise from revenue collection also. Because again, he is responsible for collecting revenue, he will also take charge of the revenue cases also. So this was the judicial system in Calcutta. There was a Zamindari court, and appeals from the Zamindari court. Zamindari court used to deal with all civil and criminal cases, and the appeals from this Zamindari court used to go to the governor and his council. Now next, the last slide is, again, there are certain things that you people should know. So some of the important features of the judicial system in Calcutta are, first, while in case of other zamindars, the capital sentence was executed only after confirmation with the Nawab, and appeals in civil cases lay to the courts at Murshidabad, but the British within their own zamindari took permission for awarding death sentence from the governor and council without making any reference to the Nawab. Now, what used to happen in other zamindari system, which were not a part of Calcutta, a capital sentence were executed only after confirmation of the Nawab. So any person, if he has to given a death sentence, it can only be given if the Nawab of that place says yes, this can be given. So a Nawab's confirmation is required in providing with a death sentence to a person. And the appeals in all civil cases used to lay to the Murshidabad, where Nawab used to sit. So in all cases, civil cases, the appeal used to go to the Nawab court. But Britishers, when they started acquiring zamindari rights and when they started controlling this permission to award death sentence to a person was starting to take from the governor and his council without making any reference to the Nawab. So earlier, the Nawab used to be asked why before confirming a death sentence or a capital sentence to a person. But later what started to happen is that his reference was not made, and instead of Nawab, the governor and his council got the rights of the Nawab. So instead of Nawab, it is actually the governor and his council who used to award death sentence. So there was a shift of power from the Nawab to governor and his council. And also appeals from the collector's court in all cases went to the governor and council and not to a Nawab court. So any appeals from the collector's court, from the Zamindar court, I told you, initially they used to go to the Nawab, which used to sit in Murshidabad, but now they used to go to the governor and his council. The governor and his council became more important than the Nawab. Initially, the Nawab of Bengal was the most important authority figure, but later what started happening, the power went from the Nawab to the governor and his council. And thus, from the very beginning, the company's representatives were very authoritative, and the company sought to act as a territorial sovereign as far as Calcutta was concerned, and tried to reduce the Nawab authority from the governance and administration of Calcutta. As you can see, the Nawab authority has been reduced, and the main authority has been given to the governor and his council. And what happened? The system continued till the Charter of 1726 was bought. So this system, that the Zamindari court was established, and the appeals from the Zamindari court, which were earlier given to the used to go to the Nawab, started going to the governor and council. This system continued till 1726. But then, while now till the judicial system was based on the company's authority, with the Charter of 1726, it derives authority from the Royal Charter. So after this, a Royal Charter is introduced. So that's why I told you till 1726 you should be knowing. So this is the end of the lecture. So this system continued till the Charter of 1726 was issued, and after this there were certain changes which were made, because now this charter derived its authority from the Royal Charter, which were the British Crown has given it, and therefore there were certain changes which were made. But this was the system of judicial system that was there in Calcutta till 1726. I hope you have understood the lecture. In case of any doubt, you can mail me the same. My mail ID is swati.saxena@alc.edu.in. Thank you so much.